On each of the 51 charges of murder, charges 1 to 51, you were sentenced to life imprisonment. I order that you serve the sentences without parole.
It was a historic day for the New Zealand justice system, the first time an act of terrorism was convicted, and the first time a sentence of life without parole handed down. A 29-year-old Australian man, Brenton Tarrant, will spend the rest of his life in prison for the murder of 51 Muslim worshippers, the attempted murder of 40 others, and for carrying out an act of terror on March 15, 2019.
Each murder was the product of calculated and lengthy planning and was committed with a high level of cruelty and callousness.
Tarrant had arrived in the country a year earlier with a plan he meticulously orchestrated, purchasing several firearms including semi-automatic weapons and studying the blueprints of dozens of mosques before he decided on two in Christchurch, Al-Noor Mosque and Linwood Islamic Centre. He chose a Friday afternoon when the mosques would be packed with worshippers for Jummah prayers. He chose 1:42 p.m. when he knew they would be in the middle of prayer with their backs turned, bowed to God. He wore a bulletproof vest strapped with a camera through which he live-streamed his killing for more than 15 minutes and published a manifesto online calling for more killing and outlining his intent to strike fear in the hearts of Muslims worldwide.
Like the rest of the country, the worshippers had no inkling of the terror and carnage that was about to be perpetuated. However, you are not only a murderer, but a terrorist. In the name of a political or ideological cause, you sought to violently intimidate the community, essentially to attack New Zealand's way of life.
At Al-Noor Mosque, Tarrant was confronted by one of the worshippers, Naeem Rashid, who threw himself at the gunman to protect others and was killed alongside 44 people. Tarrant then drove to Linwood Mosque, where he shot and killed 7 others, before being confronted yet again by father of 4 Abdulaziz Wahabzada, who chased Tarrant away from the mosque with an FPOS machine, preventing many more deaths. Wahabzada confronted him in court this week for the second time.
You should thank Allah for I didn't catch you on that day. You never forget these 2 heights you ran from.
When he was finally arrested while on his way to a third mosque in Ashburton, Tarrant told police he wished he had killed more people and had intended on blowing up the mosques with homemade explosives. It was the greatest act of murder in the country's modern history, and one of the worst mass shootings the world had ever seen. Among the dead, 71-year-old Haji Dawood Nabi, 65-year-old Linda Armstrong, and 3-year-old Muad Ibrahim. The final victim, Zakaria Tuyan, fought for his life in hospital for 48 days before passing, his wife standing by his side.
You put bullets into my husband and he fought death. He was my imam, my bodyguard, my entertainer, my problem solver, my comforter, my best friend, and the people in my community would like me to say, my Ertuğrul.
For 3 days this week, dozens of survivors and grieving family members read heartbreaking statements in court. Through pain,
burying one dead friend is heartbreaking. How about burying a one of a kind? A one of a kind that is my son, Atta, and 49 beloved brothers and sisters in one go.
and indignation.
But you are weak, a sheep with a wolf's jacket on, for only 10 minutes of your whole life.
This small community, torn apart by a horror that has changed them forever, spoke bravely, facing the killer head on, speaking for the world to hear.
People were calling me, because I was from Afghanistan, they were calling me as a fan of joke or intentionally a terrorist. But you took that name from me. Today you are called terrorist, and you proved that to the world that I was not, and us as a Muslim were not terrorists.
In the days and weeks that followed the attack, the country came together to mourn and to show love and grace in the face of blind hatred. Those lost were farewelled over the course of 5 days, buried alongside each other as their community gathered, trying to come to grips with their shock and grief.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
The Muslim call to prayer was broadcast on national radio. Non-Muslim New Zealanders wore the hijab in a sign of solidarity, and the words of the Imam from Al Noor Mosque, Gamal Fouda, echoed across airwaves and in the hearts of all.
Oh Allah, grant our nation and country New Zealand peace, security, and protect it and its people from all evils.
Tarrant initially pled not guilty to his crimes, but later changed to a guilty plea, preventing the need for a longer, more painful trial for the victims. He chose not to challenge the sentence requested by the prosecution, accepting life without parole. His victims are too many to ever receive adequate justice, the scale of his destruction too grand to ever be expressed fully. He will now disappear into a prison cell for the rest of his life, but his victims will also live out a sentence of their own as they work to piece together the fragments of their lives. In the aftermath of the March 15 attacks, the New Zealand government moved to ban all access to automatic weapons. A Royal Commission of Inquiry is now investigating the conduct of police, intelligence, and other government agencies in the lead-up to the attack. All have been accused by Muslim groups of ignoring repeated warnings and threats for years.
The trauma of March 15 is not easily healed. But today, I hope, is the last, where we have any cause to hear or utter the name of the terrorist behind it. His deserves to be a lifetime of complete and utter silence.
The country must now begin a new chapter, one that challenges the hatred hiding in the shadows of society, the rearing head of white supremacy and Islamophobia gripping the world's imagination, and to leave in its place openness, safety, and a promise to protect and celebrate its most vulnerable communities. Today, a road to healing begins.
I urge you to take a look around this courtroom and ask yourself, who exactly is the other here right now? Is it us? Or is it you? I think the answer's pretty clear.